I don't know how you just went from toque to hair, because I can't do that.
This
It's
is running
toque
hair.
in bed or toque in shower. I love it. So good. Was that pretty design?
Jill. Hey, Jill.
Jill Brown. Thought it might be Jill Brown. I was thinking about you this morning. You did. You look so good. Oh my goodness. Do you have a tan? You're muted, Jill Brown. All good. Okay. All right, let's chat paradigm shifts into the new year. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think this is kind of a good topic segue as we not only start out the new year, but as we kind of feed off of what we were talking about last week. Like last week, we were talking about how you can take your passions and your interests and the other things that you do in your life and mix them with your doTERRA business, so that, because we often think, and this is the way we come into, and it's natural to come into the new year even with this like all in, go big or go home, like if I don't go all in attitude, then I'm gonna not do it right. But there's, at the end of the day, this is your business, and there's no right or wrong way to do it, because it's your life, and because it's a lifestyle that you're educating about. Like there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's you get to play around with it, right? So I think it's really cool, and I feel like I've had a lot of conversations with people over the last week where we get talking about these like big shifts that we have to make, right, in our lifestyle or in our habits, and we start thinking about how we have to like it could be anything, whether it's like I've never worked out before and now I'm gonna like hit the gym for an hour 8 days a week, or I've been living off of wine and apple pie for the last month over the holidays, and now I'm not touching alcohol and sugar. Like, and you're just, and then when you're, oh, there you go, we've got one. So when you, but we go into these, right? But because our habits haven't changed necessarily, it's it's not sustainable, which is why the statistic is by March, actually end of February, forget the actual date, it's February something, 18th, that's coming to me, but it could be, it's something, there's a statistic that actually says that 90% of the people that set a New Year's resolution to do something this big without shifting the habits, which is their paradigm, that is just not sustainable. And then they end up hating themselves until the following December when they're like, January 1st, I'm going to do it again. And then they try again, right? But then what happens in that gap in between? They feel stuck and lost motivation and all that kind of stuff, when really they have like so many gifts and like awesomeness to offer up.
Can I strip it back a little bit more, the paradigm, so that they get, when Dylan says it's nothing like but a group of habits, it's programmed into your subconscious. So you're not even, it's like when you drive somewhere without even realizing where you've driven, you're just doing it. Okay. So you've repeated it so much that it's just so natural to you, but you can switch that natural.
And it's not even like when we're born, think of when a baby is born, right? Like all they have is a conscious mind and their genetics, right? So like we're born with our genes, but we have no subconscious mind. But the moment we are born, based on who we're like, the people we surround ourselves with, where we live, how we're raised, the stories that we're told, that is what is poured into our subconscious. So your paradigm is actually formed by the age of 8. Like in your first 8 years, it is formed, right? And then, and it's not like some people go, oh, well, there's no blame. There's no blame that, oh, my mom did this or my dad did this or my grandma did this or whatever, because they were just doing what they were taught. They have their own paradigms, their own crap to figure out, right? That the nice part is recognizing that your subconscious mind is controlling you 96% of the time, which means only 4% of what we actually do is consciously being done. But yet we think, this is where we'll think, and this happens all the time, oh, I'm going to just pour more information in. And if anybody's a learner here, if it's in your top strength, you know this, right? Like, it's not enough just to read all the studies on essential oils. It's not enough just to go to convention. It's not enough just to go to leadership or to whatever. It's about attaching a feeling to it, burning it into your subconscious, and then taking action on it, right? Like, how many times have you gone to an event and been like super pumped up and super motivated, but then you didn't do anything about it?
And what I love is on the flip side of this is why people that do go to events continuously and consistently do see changes, is because, again, they're creating that new habit. And what I want to call out, when Delyn said like 4%, that 4%, this is why we often also blame outside factors for us not seeing success. We think of like the economy, our boss, or it's the economy is why people aren't buying doTERRA as much right now, or we don't have the products in stock. Like, if you look at countries here in Europe, we have, Norway, or, oh, Jen, do you remember the group that's just like killing it? Do you remember? They don't even have LLV. They don't have, and it blew your mind.
Or didn't they only have like deep blue and 6 oils or something?
They have very little, and they're probably one of the fastest growing markets here in Europe. Okay. So we can do this business without very many products in doTERRA as well.
100%.
Sorry, do you go on?
No, and doTERRA's already proved that. Like, you look at some of the like initial founders that had they had top 10 oils and a diffuser, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they don't have what we have now, and they built huge businesses, right? But it's just like, when your thoughts are things, right? And because and again, there's no blame. It's about taking responsibility, because we attract in everything within our businesses, right? And this is where, even like, we can't, if you want to shift your paradigm, because there's no book out there that says, here's how you control your results 96% of the time, because that's just not a thing. Your paradigm is always going to control you. So knowing that, the only way to get the results that you want is to actually reprogram your paradigm and shift it into a new belief system and new habits, right? So that you can start getting the results that you want. So instead of going into the new year and saying, I'm going to like do all this stuff, and I'm going to like read all these books, and that's just pouring information into your conscious mind, right? And at the end of the day, we know that, like, for doTERRA, like, the pipe system works. It's the same thing. And if you see anybody that's had a lot of success in the business, it's not because they didn't sample. They all sampled in different ways, right? It's not that they didn't teach. They just looked at different ways to teach, right? So like,
now someone else's class.
Right, exactly. Like, they're still teaching, but even this is where I think it's really cool that we're all coming together, and having a class every Monday night, or whatever that's going to look like, right? Because if you've had a story, I can't teach a class. I don't know everything. You don't need to know everything to teach a class. You just need to know how to use your oils and use them and talk about them. However, if that's one of your stories, you now don't even have an excuse, because now you can teach in a different way, right? And you can show up in a different way. And there's lots of people that have built online strictly, and there's some people that don't even have Facebook and are, double presidentials or whatever, right? Like, you don't even see them online, and that's okay, right? Like, there's no right or wrong. Some people think, if I don't do it this way, then I can't succeed, right? But the only way you're not going to succeed is if you quit. Like, that's the only way that you can fail, because there's actually no such thing as failure. It's only learning, right? Like, you try something out, you do a Facebook Live, something didn't work on it, cool, try it differently the next time, right? But it's not necessarily about what you do, it's how you do it, right? And showing up in our strengths. And this is why doTERRA has put such a big push on like showing up in our strengths and like doing your strengths finder and emphasizing to everybody that the chances of you having the same strengths as anybody in the world is so rare. And even if you find that person, they don't have the same experiences, any backstory as you do. So they're not going to show up in the way that you do. Right. So it's like really just going like, what feels good for me? And then like what we talked about last week, how do you take your current passions and mix it in with your doTERRA so that it's fun and you're learning and you're growing and you're not trying to be anybody but you in the process. Like you're kind of staying in your own lane while also growing a team, but staying in your own lane.
Something I was thinking about, if you guys ever remember Simpsons, depending like who's watching this live or watches the recording, remember Bart being on like getting in trouble and he's always writing the same thing on the board.
Yes.
It's a really simple exercise you can do to switch that paradigm. And I'm going to ask Jill and Jen what some paradigms you guys are noticing within your teams or for yourself that are happening right now. But it's literally writing 100 times over that switch of what it is you want that mindset to be over that something. So for example, if it was you struggle with getting up in the morning, it could be I'm so happy and grateful when I wake up, I get up, and writing that over and over and over till your brain believes it, and doing that for 30 days 100 times. And it seems so simple that it's not going to work, but unless you try it, you can't knock it. So I'm curious, Jen and Jill, like, what are the paradigms going on within your teams right now?
That's an interesting concept. I think that if I wanted to shift this, I would, I wish that people could hear that that it doesn't have to be as hard as, exactly like what Dylan was saying, right? It doesn't need to be as hard and as complicated as what it seems like, or you don't have to be the picture perfect person who's out there. I think that, I've been diving into reels a lot lately. And it's funny because just in the last day, I've seen a reel where a woman was just like in her pajamas, or another woman was in her kid's messy playroom, where I won't do a reel in that area. I will make sure that I have presentable clothes on, even if it's my comfies. I'll make sure that, everything's tidy in my background, but isn't it funny how like that stuff doesn't matter? The reel is still educational and cute. I think that the other thing I'd like to think about is what are the pieces. If we're thinking about making small shifts and small positive shifts in growing a business, social media is definitely a place where you want to put some more focus, because everybody's online right this minute. And we know that we're going to be online for a little bit longer, a lot. So if there's other things that we can do to make sure that we're showing up online on a regular basis and just connecting with our business on a regular basis.
Love that. Dee, do you have a way to switch the language with Jen's first one about the business being easy? Do you have like what you would write down for that?
Yeah. So, going back to what you were saying too, Kaylee, like how to actually shift the paradigm comes down to, like, I call it the knowing doing gap. Like, because there's a difference between what we know to do and what we actually do, right? So an exercise that I always recommend doing, very kind of playing off what you already said, is writing out the situation in so much detail on what's actually happening, and then doing the opposite, writing out. I'm always like, put pen to paper, because like you can't think and write at the same, you have to think to write. Like you have to actually think, not just like surface level think, right? So there's so much power in doing that, but writing out how it is and then writing it out how you want it to be feel in all detail, like pages of detail for both of them. And then what I'll do is I'll take a highlighter and I'll highlight anything in the paragraph that shows an action or feeling. So whether I'm thinking something is hard, or whether it feels gross, or whether I think I'm not good at it, or whether I'm just not doing it, but I know I should be, whether it's contacting or whatever, right? I'll highlight it. And then, and that's kind of like step number 1 is like writing it out. Step number 2 is like highlighting the actions or feelings associated in the 2 things. And then step number 3 is writing out, I call them NPAs and PAs. So like non-productive activities and turning it into a productive activity. So like a non-productive activity for like Jen, for your example, would be, can you just say your example again, Jen? That it was hard? Yes. What was the language you used?
It was something really good, I think.
I know.
So deep.
It was super deep. What was the example?
That people were feeling it was hard, that like she didn't say overwhelming, but that kind of thing.
Yeah. Right. So a non-productive thought, a non-productive belief would be that this business is hard. So turning it into a productive belief, like what would it look like if you believed that contacting people came to you with ease and flow? Everything for me is like ease and flow, right? What if you believed that when you sampled somebody, that they weren't going to ghost you? Because just because it happened once doesn't mean that it's going to happen again, right? What if you believed that? What if you believed that when you hosted a class, that you expected, and you came into that class with the expectation of X amount of participants and X amount of enrollments, right? And they came to you with ease and flow, right? Like those are productive thoughts. And that's because we know thoughts are things, and thoughts are controlling our results. That's where it's not necessarily, you see, it's not necessarily in the action. It's about my thought going into the action. What if you thought when you text somebody and you sent them love at the same time, like energetically, that they were going to respond back and you were going to have this lovely conversation, versus being scared crapless to text somebody because you're fearful that they're going to reject you, right? So you kind of take all of the highlighted pieces, right, and you write them out, non-productive, and then you turn them into a productive feeling or action, like to where it feels good, right? And then from there you pull out 1, maybe 2 that you feel like you're going to get the best bang for your buck, right? Like contacting comes to me with ease and flow. I attract in CC leaders daily with ease and flow, right? Like whatever your story is, you have your productive activity, and that is what you write out 100 times every day. That is what you look at yourself in the mirror and you say those affirmations to yourself. I attract CC leaders daily with ease and flow. I, contact 10 people a day and 5 follow-ups with ease and flow by 9 a.m. I don't know, whatever you've come up with that currently is non-productive, but you turn it into something productive, but only 1 or 2. Like don't try to take on any more, and you do it for at least 30 days minimum. Sometimes it takes longer. People always ask me like, how do you know? And it's just like, you know instinctively, like when you are finally, if you were supposed to be contacting 10 people by 9 a.m., when you're actually doing that and you're like, hell's yeah, it's 8:55 and I'm done, right? That's when you know you've made the shift. And then that one's, and then you go to the next. Because when you initially do that task, when you initially go through those steps, you're going to have like 20 NPAs, right? But you're only going to take 1 or 2 and you're going to plug away at them. And it might seem daunting, but what's worst case scenario? Worst scenario is you don't do it and you keep getting the same damn results that you got last year and the year before and the year before, right? At least you're plugging away at them, and it's going to take time, and that's okay. That's all we got, right? So that's personally what I like to do, and it works every single time. It helps you shift every single time if you just stay persistent with it.
Good one.
You guys want to add to that? Thanks.
No, mic drop.
But it's like, I know for my team specifically, I've noticed a lot of stories around like showing up online, and all I can do is love them through it, right? Because and say that's a story you're telling yourself, something that you were taught that's not true, and you get to create your truth because your business is a direct reflection of you, and it has nothing to do with your team. Like my business, the moment I stopped blaming my team for not showing up or not enrolling or not teaching a class and not blah 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 blah, the moment I grew or I stabilized or whatever I wanted to do, the moment I stopped looking outside and started looking inside.
Because I was going to say, I was thinking about the online process, since that's something, a block coming up, a paradigm for the team. Something that can help shift it is actually, there's a lot of 30-day challenges via Instagram or via Reels that social media experts are actually giving away for free. So like if we look at, a coach out there, Jen Spiegel, she has her launch program she gives away for free. So a lot of people give away some really great content like that because they want you to hire them eventually. So it could be something fun would be, if you're getting into Reels, maybe say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm taking on this kind of challenge right now, for anyone that's feeling, like you said, and put it out there for them, that you can join me on this challenge. So they're also not going through it alone. That might be a different way to approach it for them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Good one. True.
Jill, how about for your team? What do you notice right now?
Sorry, I got distracted. My dad stopped by and I could tell he wanted something because he's like pacing back and forth by my door. So I was like, okay, what do you want, Dad? Oh, your mom's iPad. So I'm just kind of late hopping in or catching up on all of this. And yeah, I think, I think it's gotten hard for a lot of people. And I think like that's been like the story that, I'm hearing, right? It's like, oh, kids are at home. Everything's just shifted so much that I think people are finding it hard to shift, or like, well, I don't want to make all these changes and all these shifts and then everything goes back to the way it was or whatnot. I think right now there's just, everyone is just like sitting and waiting to see what's going to happen.
I think we can safely say that it's not, even once we're like not masked and people invite us into their homes again, it's going to be a while for that, but it's still not going to be like this last year has shifted so many paradigms for people, and it's been done through fear, right? So that's a whole different thing, right? But it's the fear of even showing up in a different way that's what I'm hearing, right? Is like, it's hard for people to make that shift into online. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think we've probably all seen people, like I have a couple people on my team that I never thought I would see them online. And it's been this circumstance that they're just like, I don't want more of the same thing. I'm just going to at least try it. And they've totally rocked it.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I get you.
Well, and it's just, and I don't even know if this is related or not, but even for me personally, you think, okay, let's start now and, create the systems and things, to like be online more. And then you start hearing, oh, Facebook, that's going to, we need to pull all of our stuff off Facebook. Facebook's going to be no more, Instagram, this, right? And then you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know, is it worth now? So you kind of start getting a little gut check
waiting.
almost, right? Yeah, because you're like, well, don't know that I'm going to invest all this time and energy into this, and then I got to switch again and whatnot. But
that's a really good example of a non-productive activity, though, right? Like, what if you believed that even if Facebook didn't exist anymore, which isn't won't actually happen, it'll look different, but like what if
Facebook share stop.
What if we believed, right? What if we believed that instead of it being a waste of time, that even the stuff that we pour into it can be repurposed somewhere else? What if we believed that there's no right way to do social media? What if we like turned off the noise of like algorithms and hashtags and Big Brother controlling everything we post? And what if we believed, right, that like
even content we
it that
now will be beneficial. Right. So it like right. even if it's for a short time, that it can still have a huge impact in that short time.
Yeah. And get out of our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love it.
I know I'm getting ready to launch a podcast, and a podcast is something that I've wanted to do for like the last couple years. And I call my paradigm's name is Linda. She's a real B, and B ain't for baby, let me tell you. So I like take control of Linda all the time. And Linda's been like, I've had a lot of the, who are you to like start one? Like no one's going to listen to it. What do you even know? Like not enoughness, like showing up constantly for years. Right. And finally I was just like, probably about 3 months ago, I was like, screw it. I'm doing it. I have no freaking clue how I'm going to get it done, but the how isn't up to me. I'm just going to like put it out there that this is what's happening. And like in the last few months, like totally have brought in all the different processes, like, and simple. And now I'm like, okay, I just keep trying to simplify it, right? But I know it's going to be such a cool, different way to like incorporate something like my strength. I'm a talker, I'm not a blogger, right? Totally use my strength, but then also be able to like serve in the way I want to serve, drop in my oil stuff, right? And like, I'm super stoked about it, right? And still all the technical stuff, no idea how it's going to come about, but I just know that it will.
There's when you say it like I was listening to, if you guys have ever read Everything's Figureoutable or Marie Forleo, over 70% of entrepreneurs, creatives have that imposter or the, I love the terminology she calls it. It's like the fraud squad, where it's like, I can't do this. I don't know enough. Who am I? Like that comes into play. So Dee, you're not alone in that. Like that's, I think we all, I can put my hand up. I have felt that way, you know, teaching oils for the first time. I'll never forget that class. I'm like, I'm just memorizing this.
Don't ask me any questions.
I tell all of my new leaders, I'm like, I promise you, and I taught with cue cards for the first 6 months of teaching, like legit cue cards, at least online. You could have like your cue cards posted up here. No one even has to see. I literally sat there, cue card, movie. Cue card, movie. Like that's how I taught. Because I was just like figuring it out along the way. Like there's no, but it worked for me. I got a crap ton of enrollments when I first started off cue cards.
Jen was at my PowerPoint classes. Remember that, Jen?
I'll never forget. We were on our way to one of your classes and you kept trying to practice how to say sesquiterpene. 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 And I'm like, the heck is a sesquiterpene? But let's practice.
Ange was in Toronto teaching, and like I was brand new, and she said, oh, you can go see Ange teach a class. So I went to Ange's friend's house, knew nobody, and I was like, it blew me away. It was like PowerPoint and like so pretty. So I went home, I'm like, oh my God. And I like remember like I had her on voice record, so I would listen to her over and over from that. Yeah, that was I know that word. People think I'm like the scientist, or thought I was. I don't use it anymore.
So funny.
So cool. All right. But it's just like, it's getting an inspired action, like an inspired thing that you want to do, and then just trying it out. Like it's recognizing, like so many people think that success happens when you finally get to silver, gold, or diamond, or whatever your goal is, right? They think, oh, I'm successful when I get there. No, the success is along the way. It's like doing the things as you're inspired to do them, enjoying the ride. That's success, right? And like you're never gonna fail. Like even I was reading Think and Grow Rich earlier, and it was talking about Sir Edmund Hillary, who climbed Mount Everest. That guy went there for like 3 years in a row doing his research, tried climbing that damn mountain twice, and had to come back, right? Like, but talk about persistence, right? Like he just kept tweaking it, right? So if everybody's got their mountain, everybody has their mountain, and there's always, but when he started climbing, 100%, right? Everybody's got their mountain, and there's always going to be like, but what we'll do is we'll say, I want to be diamond, and that, but diamond is the top of the mountain. If that's some people are like, I want to be silver, and that's cool too. Silver's the top of your mountain, whatever, right? But he just didn't climb it in a day. He had like stops along the way to get to to the top, right? So your first goal has to be, how do I get to here?
Base camp.
Okay, and then how do I get to here? And like break it down. Has to be, or else it's so overwhelming, then you just get scared and quit. And that's failure, is quitting. That's the only way if you just say I'm not gonna ever quit, then you're not gonna fail. Period. Easy, right?
So easy.
Deal. Got this? Yeah. That's all you gotta say.
I'm gonna have to jump off and get these kids to bed.
I know, me too. I'll talk about this all day. We will continue because we have a good segue into this for next week, right, Kales?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about critics, everything from trolls to your self-critic and more. So stay tuned.
And your family.
Coming up.
Bye, guys.
See you.